if you go back, I guarantee you I can find quotes, right, from Democrats and, even some Republicans about major spending initiatives and how they're going to be transformative, how they were going to redefine things, how they were going to solve problems and, um, uh, and put simmering problems to rest so we can move forward as we build the bridge into the 21st century and provide unity and unified hopefulness for hopeful unification and all sorts of things, right? Fundamental transformation, all the rest. And you can certainly find quotes from all sorts of pundits and writers who boosted uh, these claims and sort of swept up behind the elephant of various politicians to make the case that these claims were in fact true. Whether it's infrastructure, Obamacare, No Child Left Behind, yada yada yada, right? And I'm open to suggestions here, but like, can someone point me to where one of these supposedly transformative, sweeping public policy initiatives that costs a lot of money, that the money was justified because it was going to solve something, right? Um, have any of them done that? Right? I mean, just think about it this way: like, we live in a society right now where a lot of people are bummed out and sad. Rates of depression are very high, suicide rates are very high, satisfaction with the economy is very low, wrong track numbers are very high. Pick your indicator. And people belief in the problem of racism. I haven't checked the poll numbers recently. I think they're probably less dramatic than a lot of people might think they are, but they're probably, people probably still think racism is a huge problem. And I'm not saying it's not a huge problem. I'm just saying that if you spent, I don't know, where do you want to go back to? The war on poverty, the New Deal, the federal government has been steadily spending trillions of dollars on all sorts of these supposedly structural problems with the purported intent and promise of eliminating these structural problems. Has on net medical healthcare spending gone down since Obamacare? I feel if it's been dramatic, I would have heard people bragging about that, right? Has public health improved dramatically? I remember this was a big fight back in the time where I remember I wrote several columns about all this stuff where, Bill Clinton and all sorts of other supporters of Obamacare would say, look, we have low life expectancy in this country compared to Europe. And it's because of our healthcare system. And that's why we have to pass Obamacare. Bloomberg made this point. Clinton made this point. I'm sure Obama made the point. And I remember Ezra Klein and a lot of those kinds of guys made those points. And then the second Obamacare looked like it was going to pass, all of a sudden the arguments switched and people were saying, oh, you shouldn't expect, that should not be one of the metrics about whether or not Obamacare is a success. Well, if you're pitching something as a solution to a problem, and then you get your solution, you get your proposed remedy, why you can't hold the proposed, why you can't hold that against, as a measurement of success, as a yardstick, was just a total mystery to me. Now, again, I thought it was a dumb argument at the time. I wrote about it in my underrated second book. Obviously, the healthcare system has some significance, some relevance towards life expectancy in the United States. I suspect that the most relevant agency, aspect of public health in this country for life expectancy is probably the mental health sphere. But that's a conversation for another day. Regardless, we're seeing life expectancy go down recently. We spent a lot of money on healthcare reforms and also, mental health stuff. I mean, it's all complicated. My only point is that where's the payoff for all this money? I mean, we're constantly hearing how we need to spend X amount more to fix a problem. And the second the money gets spent, they say, well, you can't expect us to have fixed the problem. We're just trying to make progress with the problem, blah, 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 blah. The poverty rate, since the war on poverty, it's down somewhat, particularly among old people. That was, my old boss, Ben Wattenberg, would always point out that that was the real success of the Great Society and the war on poverty, was that it brought down poverty among old people dramatically. And that's a perfectly legitimate point in favor of various entitlement programs. I'm not going to get into the little Bastiat, seen and unseen stuff, but it's a perfectly fine political argument to make and all the rest. But since then, where is the payoff? People, there's this conviction among a lot of people on the left that somehow America does not have a robust social safety net. But if you actually look at all welfare, for whatever, social safety net spending, I don't want to use pejorative term if it turns people off to my point, at state, local, and federal level, we're not that far off from Scandinavian countries. We spend a lot of money on this stuff. Do we spend it the right way? Could we spend it smarter? Obviously. But you try to propose reforms to how we spend that money, and people say it's outrageous. We have this threadbare social safety net, and how dare you, consider doing such a thing? And so anyway, I'm going too long repeating myself, but the idea that somehow government is really good at solving the problems that people who love government think only government can solve those problems. There's just not a lot of clear-cut, obvious evidence that they've had an enormous amount of success with that, and there should be some real humility on the part of left-wingers with sort of utopian aspirations for what government can do. And that goes also with the environmental stuff. Like, we could pass the whole Green New Deal tomorrow. The payoffs for the climate globally, even if you accept the models, don't really come online for decades, or not until like the end of the century. I remember when we were told Kyoto Protocol was life or death. And then, the EPPC released the math on it, and turned out that if you would need like 20 Kyotos, and you would see at the end of the century a dropping of like 1 point centigrade in average global temperatures. I mean, by all means, make arguments for fighting climate change. Just don't promise people you're going to solve it tomorrow, if you just get people to get rid of their gas stoves or whatnot. And similarly, humility is always justified on the right. The right is supposed to have a sense of humility about the effects of public policy. You can't talk about, and I don't mean just like Donald Trump promising to end the war in Ukraine 24 hours after he's elected. I mean, there's lots of things that conservatives think are really, really easy that turn out to be, hard. And they should know that better than liberals, because they're the ones who say government is not the solution to a lot of problems and all that. At the same time, they should probably show some humility that government is kind of essential to all sorts of social functions. It's weird how libertarians are in such bad odor on so many parts of the right, and yet a lot of those same conservatives have real contempt for a lot of the sort of social service functions of the federal government, or even state governments, that a lot of people rely on. And anyway, I'm you get it.